Is it possible that we all, humans and aliens alike, experience time differently? This is a linguistics show, not a physics show, so we're not talking about time dilation and the effects of speed and gravity on the relative movement of time. But, like physics, linguistics too has a theory of relativity, and it was on full display in the movie Arrival. Linguist Dr. Louise Banks, played by Amy Adams, deciphers the language of the alien heptapods. By learning the looping, written language built of inkblot logograms, Dr. Banks begins to experience time the way the aliens do, non-linearly, all at once. The hotly contested Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, named after American linguists Edward Sapir and Benjamin Lee Whorf, proposes that the language you speak affects how you think and your perception of the world. So if your language has no past, present, or future, like heptapod B, you just might learn to see time that way. At least in the world of a Hollywood blockbuster. In the real world, whether you intuitively think of the future as up, down, ahead, behind, left, right, or even east-west, does depend on what language you speak. But does that mean you're limited to understanding things in one way? That your language dictates whether time can only be linear or cyclical or a Jeremy Bearimy? Is time a social construct? I'm Dr. Erica Brzozowski, and this is Otherwords. Otherwords. Linguists have been arguing about the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis for decades. The strong theory, called linguistic determinism, claims that your native language limits and determines your worldview and how you think. Essentially, it states that if your language lacks the vocabulary or grammar to communicate a concept, then you are unable to even conceptualize it. Whorf studied Hopi, a Uto-Aztecan language spoken by a people indigenous to what is now the southwestern United States. He argued that Hopi didn't have the words or grammar to refer to what we call time, and as such had no general notion or intuition of time as a smooth-flowing continuum in which everything in the universe proceeds at equal rate, out of a future through the present into a past. And he used this time premise to support his theory. Many thought it meant that the Hopi have no concept of time. To be sure, they definitely do, as made abundantly clear in the 600-page tome, Hopi Time, that linguist Eckhart Malotki published in 1983. The plot of Arrival is grounded in linguistic determinism. In the film, learning heptapod B completely rewired Banks's brain, and therefore worldview, such that it changed her perception of time. She even had memories of the future. Again, that's Hollywood. In the real world, linguistic determinism has been discredited by numerous studies and largely abandoned. The weak theory of linguistic relativity views your native tongue not as a barrier, but as a lens through which you see the world, theorizing that your language influences your perception and understanding. Now, how much it influences, or if the influence is statistically significant, is inconclusive. But many, perhaps most linguists, would agree that at some level our language does impact the way we think about things, and therefore the way we talk about them. And one thing we talk about a lot is time. The word for time is one of, if not the most commonly used noun in a language. This is true of time, tiempo, zaman or vakit, 时间, zeit or mal, vrema, and more. Now, whether or not we understand time fundamentally differently is unclear, but we sure do talk about it differently. Think for a moment about how you visualize or spatially construct time. I think of a history book timeline, where the past is on the left and we move towards the right as time progresses. And I gesture left for the past and right for the future. I might talk about moving forward in time into the future and backward to the past. We're not even going to start on Back to the Future. We have phrases like, "you have your whole life ahead of you," or "the past is behind us." In Swedish, the literal translation of the word for future, framtid, is front time. This makes sense to English speakers because we imagine the future is something ahead of us that we walk towards. But maybe we're just used to the idea because that's the way our language describes it. But could there be other ways to describe the direction of time? If you're a native English or Swedish speaker, you probably gesture and imagine time similarly to the way that I do. But what about if your native language reads right to left? If you speak Arabic or Hebrew, your timeline might be right to left. And in both languages, when you reference the past, you talk about what is before you, qablu and kadam. and the words for the future to what is behind. For the Aymara people, indigenous to the Andes of South America, the future is also behind. The Aymara word, naira, means eye and can be used to refer to things both physically in front of you, like your eyes, and events that happened in the past. Nairamara means last year. Kipa refers to back or behind, yet is temporally progressive. Kipamara is next year, and Kipuru is a future day. And the language and gestures align. The Aymara indicate forward to discuss the past and behind to discuss the future. In Vietnamese, gesturing forward to refer to the past is also common, which aligns with the word for before, literally meaning in front of, and after, literally meaning behind that. And unlike in Aymara, where time is stationary and a person moves backwards towards the future, in Vietnamese, a person is stationary and the future moves toward the person from behind, passes the person, and then becomes the past in front. Simple, right? Here's an example. If we're moving on the timeline, we're getting closer to the holidays or the deadline, which is a fixed point. But if we're stationary and time is moving, the holidays or deadline are creeping up on us. So the past and future can be left or right or left, front and back, or back and front. But what about on the vertical axis? We don't really speak much about time vertically in English. This is the here and now, and I guess traditions can be handed down to the next generation, and perhaps you can move a meeting up, which means earlier, as opposed to back, which means later, but verticality is not the standard when it comes to time in English. It is, however, in Mandarin. It was traditionally written vertically, right to left, though nowadays it's typically horizontal, left to right. And in Mandarin, the past is up, shang, and the future is down, xia. And let me tell you, I mix it up all the time. Next week, 下个礼拜. Last week, 上个礼拜. Upstairs, 楼上. Downstairs, 楼下. Did I mess them up? 上个礼拜. Yes. Will I probably do it again? 下个礼拜. Also yes. But if I were a native speaker, it would be instinctual. In Malagasy, spoken in Madagascar, the past is in front, Taloha, and the future behind, Ariana. But you can also speak of time vertically. Amboni, up, ambani, down. Up in context of next, and down for last or past. Though apparently sometimes this can be reversed with up being past and down being future when you're thinking about time on a calendar. There's always exceptions. And for the Yupno people of Papua New Guinea, time flows uphill. In their mountainous region, the past is downhill, potentially because their ancestors climbed up from the lowlands. And the future is uphill, to the source of their river. Facing uphill and talking about the past, they would gesture backwards, but turn around and now the past is in front. However, when inside a home, the Yupno gesture towards the door for the past and away for the future, no matter if the house faces uphill or down. Kuk Theore, a Paman language spoken by the Theore people of Australia, represents time based on cardinal directions, with the past in the east where the sun rises and the future in the west where the sun sets. So when referring to the past, it depends on which direction you're facing as to how you'll point. And speakers always know which direction they're facing, unlike most other cultures or languages that don't prioritize cardinal directions. I think that's east. All this to say that there's no one right way to conceptualize time. Your future could go in any direction. And we know all this because linguists and anthropologists have conducted numerous cross-cultural studies. Spanish and Swedish speakers measuring time passed in different dimensions, Hebrew and English speakers organizing pictures right to left or left to right, Dutch speakers judging temporal phrases written normally, rotated, or mirror image, Mandarin and English bilinguals showing aptitude for time both horizontally and vertically, and dozens of others. And the results, some replicable, others not yet, do show that participants had a slight bias for the way of conceptualizing time that their native language showed, and that it might take slightly more mental energy to think of time in a different direction. So while we can fairly easily learn to conceptualize time differently than is most common in our primary language, the weak version of the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, linguistic relativity, just may have legs to stand on. Either way, our differing time perspectives highlight the variability across cultures that make learning about other languages so fascinating. Oops, looks like our time is up.